January 13, 2012. I want you to really picture the scene here. It was the night the sea literally turned into a nightmare. Welcome to this explainer. Today we're unpacking the anatomy of a tragedy that just stopped the world in its tracks. I mean, nobody imagined that within a matter of hours, this absolutely beautiful ship would become one of the most shocking maritime disasters of the modern era.
Disaster doesn't always arrive with a storm. Let that sink in for a second. You know, when we think of shipwrecks, we almost always picture towering waves, hurricane winds, and nature just unleashing its absolute fury. But the terrifying reality we're exploring today is that sometimes the weather has absolutely nothing to do with it. Sometimes disaster arrives on a perfectly calm night in the Mediterranean Sea, driven entirely by human error.
Okay, let's dive into this. Part 1. A modern floating hotel.
Before we can even begin to comprehend the crash itself, we have to understand the sheer normalcy of what was happening just hours prior. More than 4,000 people were aboard the Costa Concordia for what was supposed to be a dream vacation. You really have to imagine the stakes here. Families were eating dinner together, kids were laughing in the hallways, music was echoing across this massive ship. 4,000 lives, completely unaware of what was about to happen.
To really grasp the scale, you have to realize this wasn't just a boat, it was basically an enormous floating city. We're talking almost 300 meters long. It had luxury restaurants, full-size theaters, swimming pools, and casinos. It was carrying passengers from all around the globe. I really want you to lean into this picture of absolute invincibility. Everything looked totally perfect from the outside. Walking those decks, you'd feel like literally nothing could go wrong.
But things did go wrong. Moving on to Section 2. One fatal human decision. We shift from a scene of incredible, carefree luxury to a really foreboding reality, where a single, isolated choice changed absolutely everything that night. It all came down to a maneuver known as the salute. And this brilliantly illustrates the sheer arrogance at play here. The salute is this unofficial and frankly dangerous maneuver where a ship sails incredibly close to the shore. Why? Honestly, just to impress people on land. To give passengers a closer view of a small Italian island called Giglio. It was completely unnecessary. Just a dangerous flex of maritime muscle.
But the sea does not forgive carelessness. At approximately 9:45 p.m., the impossible happened. Imagine you're sitting at dinner and suddenly a loud tearing sound just explodes beneath you. You feel this violent vibration under your feet. Plates crash onto the restaurant floors. The lights flicker. People just stop talking. For a few seconds, there's dead silence in the air. And then, the panic hits. By 9:46 p.m., seawater is rushing into the engine compartments like a monster breaking through a wall. By 9:48, the electricity fails. The engines stop responding. Within 3 minutes, this giant ship is critically wounded.
Which brings us to our third section, the descent into darkness.
So the giant cruise ship had struck these underwater rocks, ripping a massive hole in its side. And now, it's slowly losing control in the freezing dark sea. Now, what's really interesting about this is the horrifying contrast between what passengers were being told and what was actually happening below deck. Crew members initially told everyone it was just an electrical problem, actively asking people to return to their cabins. But the reality? A massive hole in the hull, engines completely flooded. The ship was sinking. The crew was either in total denial or trying to manage panic, but in doing so, they left thousands of people completely unaware of the grave danger they were actually in.
The evacuation was an absolute nightmare. The ship started to tilt, making it literally impossible to walk straight. Imagine standing inside a giant building and suddenly the floor beneath you starts leaning. Glasses fall, furniture slides across rooms, and the hallways literally turn sideways. And because of this severe lean, several lifeboats became physically impossible to launch. Crew instructions were all over the place, and different languages added even more confusion as parents grabbed their kids and elderly passengers cried in panic. Out of pure desperation, some passengers actually jumped directly into the freezing cold water. Put yourself in that position for a second, surrounded by black ocean at night, unable to see clearly, hearing alarms, screaming metal, and sheer panic all around you in the pitch black.
Part 4. Get back on board.
Outside, rescue teams from the Italian Coast Guard, local fishermen, and residents were all rushing back and forth in small boats, fighting the darkness to save people before the ship completely rolled over. But while this chaotic rescue effort was happening, a stunning controversy was unfolding. It's almost hard to process. Captain Francesco Schettino actually abandoned the ship before all the passengers were rescued. It's a complete betrayal of the most fundamental rule of maritime duty. While passengers were crawling across sideways walls trying to reach the exits, the captain,
The man in charge of all those lives had already left the vessel.
This led to a deeply infamous intercepted command. So, the crucial point is this quote: "Get back on board." This was a direct order from an Italian Coast Guard official. A recorded conversation between the Coast Guard and the captain leaked and immediately spread across international news. In the audio, you hear the official repeatedly ordering the captain to return to the ship and do his job, to continue the rescue operations. Those powerful words really transformed a tragic disaster into a story of absolute global outrage.
I want to pause respectfully right here. 32. By the end of this terrifying nightmare, 32 people lost their lives. Some drowned. Some became trapped inside the ship's flooded lower decks or sideways staircases. Some just never made it to safety in time. Behind all the facts, the timelines, and the outrage, this is the devastating human cost.
And finally, Section 5, the cost of arrogance.
Following the disaster, the massive Costa Concordia rolled completely onto its side near the rocky coast of Giglio Island. News channels across America and Europe covered it non-stop, and the images of this helpless wreck totally shocked the world. It was such a surreal sight, this giant luxury cruise ship looking broken, almost unreal. When investigators searched for answers, the findings were just brutal. The ship sailed way too close to dangerous rocks. Critical emergency decisions were delayed. Emergency coordination completely failed during the evacuation. It was a catastrophic chain of human mistakes. Every single point here highlights one deeply frustrating fact. This entire nightmare was completely avoidable. For years after the accident, the wreck remained visible near the island, like a ghost frozen in time. Engineers eventually had to launch one of the largest and most expensive maritime recovery operations in history just to remove the wreck, piece by piece. Thousands of workers and an incredible engineering effort were required just to move the destroyed vessel. But of course, no amount of engineering could erase the survivors' trauma. The sound of scraping metal, the sudden tilt of the floor, the sight of people running through dark hallways, those memories remain absolutely unforgettable.
Which leaves us with a final, provocative question to reflect on. What actually happens when human judgment fails our greatest technologies? The Costa Concordia disaster became so much more than just a ship accident. It became a permanent warning, a really stark warning about arrogance and negligence. We can build massive floating hotels with all the luxury, precision, and technology in the world, but the ocean is merciless. As we've explored today, sometimes the most terrifying disasters don't begin with nature, they begin with a single human decision. I hope this explainer has given you a clearer understanding of the forces at play that tragic night. Thank you so much for diving into this with me.